The next morning dawned bright and cold. I dressed with methodical precision, charcoal suit, crisp white shirt, a deep blue tie Claire had once told me brought out my eyes. The irony wasn't lost on me. I arrived at Apex headquarters at 8:30, deliberately early for my 9 a.m. meeting. The atmosphere on the engineering floor was thick with tension and hushed conversations. News traveled fast in corporate environments, especially news involving scandal and leadership changes. Amy Chen, one of our senior developers, intercepted me at the coffee machine. "Michael, what the hell is happening? James hasn't arrived and Diane from admin says there's been an emergency board meeting since 7. "I've been called in at 9, I admitted, keeping my expression neutral. "Beyond that, I don't know much. A lie, of course, but necessary. Until the official narrative emerged, I needed to maintain the appearance of the blindsided subordinate. "It's about the Reynolds presentation, isn't it?" Amy pressed. "Did we lose the contract?" "Actually, no. Reynolds is still on board, especially after seeing the revised architecture." I allowed myself a small smile. "Aditya's design impressed them tremendously." "Aditya? But he's in India." "Was in India," I corrected. "He's returning Monday to lead the implementation team." Amy's eyebrows shot up. "That's unexpected. Sometimes the most qualified person for a job actually gets it." I checked my watch. "Excuse me, Amy, I need to prepare for my meeting." As I walked away, I felt her curious gaze following me. By afternoon, everyone would know my role in the unfolding drama, but for now, I savored these final moments of anonymity, the calm before the storm I had deliberately created. At precisely 9 a.m., Brenda Winters escorted me to the executive conference room on the 32nd floor. Inside waited CEO Richard Harlow, CFO Meredith Chan, and Thomas Ellison, the soon-to-retire Director of Engineering. Conspicuously absent was James Harrington. "Michael, thank you for coming," Harlow began, his expression grave. "I understand the circumstances are extremely difficult for you personally." I nodded, projecting dignified distress. "I appreciate the sensitivity. This isn't easy for anyone." "Indeed." He gestured for me to sit. "Brenda has shared your evidence with the leadership team, and we've spent the morning addressing the situation. James Harrington has been placed on administrative leave pending formal termination proceedings." "I see," I said softly. "Ms. Winters has highlighted that you're in a uniquely uncomfortable position given the personal nature of the misconduct." Harlow continued, "We want to assure you that you bear no responsibility for James's actions or their impact on your career trajectory." CFO Chan leaned forward. "To be blunt, Michael, we're concerned about potential legal exposure. James's behavior constitutes sexual harassment by proxy and creates significant liability for Apex." "I haven't considered legal action," I said, "the perfect victim. My priority is ensuring the Reynolds implementation proceeds smoothly and that the engineering team remains stable during this transition." The relief around the table was palpable. Thomas Ellison spoke next, his voice carrying the weight of his decades of experience. "Your professionalism is commendable, Michael, particularly your handling of yesterday's presentation issues." He exchanged glances with Harlow. "Which brings us to the next matter at hand." Harlow cleared his throat. "With James's departure, the executive VP position is now vacant. Given your demonstrated leadership yesterday and your obvious technical capabilities, we'd like to offer you the role, with the understanding that you'd report directly to Thomas until his retirement, and then to his successor." I allowed an appropriate moment of surprised silence before responding. "While I appreciate the vote of confidence, I'm not sure that would be the right move, for me or for the company." I met each of their gazes in turn. The engineering team has just discovered that one colleague's career was undermined while another's was artificially advanced. Promoting me now, regardless of the circumstances, could reinforce the perception that advancement at Apex depends on factors other than merit. Meredith Chan raised an eyebrow. What would you suggest instead? Aditya Sharma is returning on Monday. His technical expertise is unparalleled, and his original design is what ultimately won over the Reynolds team. I leaned forward slightly. Elevating him would send a powerful message about Apex's values moving forward. And your role? Brenda asked quietly. I'll continue leading my current projects, reporting to whoever fills the VP position. In time, I hope to be considered for advancement based solely on my contributions. I straightened my shoulders. That's all I've ever wanted, to succeed on my own merits. The meeting concluded with handshakes and assurances of support. As Brenda walked me back to the elevator, she spoke in low tones. That was unexpectedly gracious, Michael. Most people in your position would have grabbed the promotion. I offered a sad smile. Recent events have clarified my priorities, and frankly, I need time to process everything, professionally and personally. Of course. She hesitated. Have you spoken with Claire since last night? No. Our marriage is over. Some betrayals can't be forgiven. As the elevator doors closed between us, I caught a final glimpse of Brenda's sympathetic expression. She, like everyone else, saw exactly what I wanted them to see. The wronged husband, the ethical professional, the man who declined advancement, out of principle. None of them would ever understand that the VP position had never been my goal. Power accumulated too quickly becomes conspicuous. Influence cultivated slowly becomes invisible. By declining the promotion while recommending Aditya, I had simultaneously established my integrity, ensured a competent ally in leadership, and positioned myself as invaluable without appearing ambitious. I had, in essence, made myself bulletproof. 3. Months later, Apex Technology Solutions had largely recovered from what employees now referred to simply as the incident. James Harrington was gone, his reputation in ruins after details of his misconduct leaked to industry publications. Claire had filed for divorce, accepting a settlement far less generous than she might have received had she not been documented engaging in infidelity that violated company policies. Aditya thrived as Executive VP of Engineering, implementing sweeping changes to advancement criteria and project assignments. Under his leadership, the department's productivity increased by nearly 30%. The Reynolds implementation proceeded ahead of schedule, with early performance metrics exceeding expectations, and I continued my work quietly, efficiently, and with newfound respect from colleagues who viewed me as someone who had endured betrayal with dignity. When Aditya created a new position, Chief Security Architect, and appointed me to the role, nobody questioned whether I deserved it. On a crisp autumn evening, almost 6 months to the day after I discovered Claire's betrayal, Aditya and I sat on the patio of an upscale restaurant, celebrating the successful completion of the Reynolds project. To engineering excellence, he toasted, raising his glass. And to justice, I added, clinking my glass against his. Aditya studied me over the rim of his whiskey. You know, I've never directly asked what evidence you had against James that night. We met. It must have been compelling, I smiled faintly. Compelling enough. And your ex-wife? Do you hear from her? She's in California now, starting over. I shrugged. We don't communicate. He nodded thoughtfully. What you went through, personally and professionally, would have broken most people. Yet here you are stronger than before. Here we are, I corrected. Don't forget, your career was nearly derailed too. True. Aditya swirled his drink. Sometimes I wonder if there was a moment when James could have changed course, a point before everything unraveled. There's always such a moment, I replied. The challenge is recognizing it when you're standing at the threshold. Later that night, alone in my new apartment overlooking the harbour, not unlike the view from James's old office, I considered Aditya's implicit question. Had there been a moment when I could have chosen a different path? When I might have confronted Claire immediately, filed for divorce, and reported James to HR without the elaborate orchestration of their downfall? Perhaps. But that would have left the underlying system intact. James would have received a reprimand. At most, Claire might have extracted a generous settlement, and the culture of manipulation would have continued unchecked. Other talented engineers would have been sidelined, while mediocrity was rewarded based on personal connections and compromises. No, I had chosen the only path that delivered true justice, not just for myself, but for everyone affected by the corruption James represented. I had reached my point of no return the moment I saw that message on Claire's phone, and I had embraced the inevitable destruction that followed. As I gazed out at the city lights reflecting on the dark water, I felt no regret, only a quiet satisfaction that when faced with betrayal, I had refused the role of victim. Instead, I had become something far more dangerous, an engineer who understood that sometimes the only way to fix a fundamentally flawed system is to destroy it from within and build something better from the ruins. The notification sound was innocuous, a gentle chime from my wife's phone at 2:17 a.m. But that single tone shattered my world like a sledgehammer through glass. I wasn't supposed to see the message. I wasn't supposed to pick up her unlocked phone as she showered after what she'd claimed was a late me. That night, the night of the notification, I sat at our kitchen island until dawn, my mind switching between shocked disbelief and cold calculation. Claire emerged from the bedroom around 6 a.m., dressed impeccably in a fitted black dress, her blonde hair perfectly styled despite the early hour. "You're up early," she remarked, kissing my cheek as if nothing were amiss. "Couldn't sleep?" I forced a smile. "Big project today. Thought I'd get a head start." My ambitious man. Her fingers trailed across my shoulders. "Will you be home for dinner? I was thinking we could celebrate." "Celebrate what?" "Just a feeling I have." Her smile held secrets I now understood. "James mentioned yesterday that the director position might be opening up soon. He suggested you were at the top of the shortlist." Her casual use of my boss's first name didn't surprise me now. Nor did the inside information. Still, I felt bile rising in my throat. "I'll be home," I managed to say. "Save a bottle of the good champagne." She kissed me again, deeply this time, and I fought the urge to recoil. "Love you, babe. Knock 'em dead today." As the door closed behind her, I whispered, "That's exactly what I plan to do." Apex Technology Solutions occupied the top 6 floors of a gleaming downtown tower. Our department, Engineering and Systems Development, took up the 28th floor, with James Harrington's corner office overlooking the harbour. I'd always envied that view. Now I wondered how many times Claire had bent over that desk, staring out at the water while earning my next promotion. I stepped off the elevator at 7:30 a.m., nodding to the few early arrivals scattered throughout. The open floor plan. My desk was positioned in what we called the fishbowl, a glass-walled enclosure housing the senior engineers. It was a status symbol, visible proof that I was ascending the corporate ladder. Now it felt like a cage. "Preston, just the man I wanted to see." James Harrington's voice boomed across the space as he approached, coffee in hand. At 52, he maintained the physique of a man 15 years younger, a fact I'd previously attributed to his well-known triathlon hobby. Now I wondered how much exercise he got with my wife. "Morning, James." I stood shaking his offered hand and fighting the impulse to crush his fingers. "Got a minute? Something big I want to discuss." His smile was all camaraderie and male bonding, the mentor encouraging his protégé. I followed him to his office, noticing details I'd overlooked before. The small seating area with a plush couch positioned away from the door's sightline. The private bathroom. The electronic lock that required a keycard. "Close the door, would you?" He settled behind his desk, setting his coffee aside. "What I'm about to tell you isn't public knowledge yet." I complied, then took the seat across from him. "I'm intrigued." "You should be." He leaned forward. "Thomas is retiring. After 12 years, our esteemed director is hanging it up to sail the Caribbean or some such bullshit." Thomas Ellison was the director of engineering, James's boss, and the position 2 steps above my current role. It was a role that typically required another decade of experience. "That's big news," I said neutrally. "Here's the bigger news. I'm being promoted to his position." James couldn't contain his grin. "Effective next month." "Congratulations. Well deserved." The words tasted like ash. "And that means my position is opening up." He pointed at me. "I've already told the CEO you're my recommendation. There might be a formal interview process for appearances, but consider it yours. Executive VP of Engineering, a position that would nearly double my salary and put me in the C-suite pipeline. All purchased with my wife's betrayal." I don't know what to say. That, at least, was honest. "Say you'll knock it out of the park." He stood, signaling the end of our meeting. "There's just one more project I need you to spearhead before the transition. The Reynolds contract, it's massive, potentially 9 figures. The demo is in 3 weeks, nail that, and the promotion announcement happens the same day, the Reynolds contract. Our biggest potential client yet, a government-adjacent security firm looking to overhaul their entire infrastructure. I'd been peripherally involved for months, but not on the core team. You're putting me on the Reynolds project?" I kept my voice level professional, not just on it, running it. James clapped my shoulder. "The current lead, Aditya, is taking personal leave starting tomorrow. Family emergency in India. Timing isn't ideal, but it's a perfect opportunity for you to showcase your leadership." Aditya Sharma was a brilliant engineer, easily the most talented on staff. His family emergency seemed suspiciously convenient. "I appreciate the confidence," I said. "I won't let you down." "I know you won't." His smile held a hint of something proprietary. "You've never disappointed me yet." As I turned to leave, he added, "Oh, and Michael, let's celebrate soon. Dinner at my place this weekend. Bring Claire. Marianne's been asking about her." Marianne, his wife of 25 years. The thought of sitting across from her making small talk while harboring the knowledge of her husband's infidelity made my stomach turn. "Sounds great," I lied. "I'll check with Claire." Back at my desk, I opened my computer and began the first phase of my plan. Not the Reynolds project, though I would certainly use that too, but something far more personally satisfying. I pulled up my personal email and composed a message to Aditya Sharma. "Aditya, I just heard about your family emergency. I'm very sorry, and hope everything resolves quickly. If there's anything you need while in India, please don't hesitate to ask. I've been assigned to take over the Reynolds project in your absence. If you have time before your flight, could we meet briefly to discuss the current status and any concerns? Safe travels, Michael." Within minutes, my phone rang, Aditya's number. "Michael." His voice was tight with barely controlled anger. "There is no family emergency." "I thought that might be the case," I replied quietly, moving to the stairwell for privacy. "What happened?" "Yesterday, James called me into his office. He said there were concerns about my commitment level and suggested I take time off to reassess my priorities. When I pushed back, he implied my visa renewal might encounter problems if I didn't cooperate. The bitterness in his voice was palpable. 15 years in this country, 7 years at this company, and suddenly my commitment is questioned 2 weeks before the biggest presentation of my career. My suspicions confirmed, I asked, "Did he say who would be taking over?" He didn't need to. Everyone knows you're his golden boy. Aditya paused. No offense, Michael. You're good, but this project has been your baby for 9 months, and I'm being parachuted in at the last minute. It's bullshit. His surprise at my candor was evident in his silence. Aditya, are you really going to India? I asked. No, I'm taking interviews. Quantum Systems already made an offer and Thorn Tech wants to meet next week. Both major competitors. Both would be lucky to have him. Don't accept anything yet, I said, making a split-second decision that would accelerate. My timeline. Can you meet me tonight? Not at the office, somewhere private. Why? The suspicion in his voice was warranted. Because I think we've both been manipulated, and I have a proposition that might interest you. That evening, I told Claire I had to work late on the Reynolds project. She pouted prettily but didn't push, likely because she had plans of her own. I tracked her iPhone location to the Four Seasons Hotel downtown, 2 blocks from our office, where it remained from 6:30 p.m. until just after 9. Meanwhile, I met Aditya at a small Ethiopian restaurant in Cambridge, far from any Apex employee's usual haunts. Over injera and spiced stews, I laid out just enough of my plan to secure his cooperation without revealing my true endgame. The Reynolds system is your design, I said. You deserve the credit and the career advancement that will come with it. Aditya studied me over his beer. Yesterday you were content to take my place. What changed? Let's just say I had a revelation about how James operates. I maintained eye contact. He's been systematically eliminating talented engineers who might overshadow him or challenge his authority. Your leave of absence is just the latest example. And why should I trust you? You've benefited from his favoritism more than anyone. I took a calculated risk, because I have evidence that could take him down. But exposing him directly would damage the company and everyone in it, including people who don't deserve the fallout. What kind of evidence? The kind that stays private, as long as you help me implement a better solution. Aditya considered this, his analytical mind visibly working through the implications. What exactly are you proposing? You continue your family leave officially, but you work with me behind the scenes. I'll be the face of the project, but we'll implement your original vision, not the corner-cutting version James has been pushing. And the presentation? We knock it out of the park, secure the contract, and then you miraculously return just as implementation begins. I'll insist you lead it, giving you the visibility and credit you deserve. What do you get out of this? Arrangement, I smiled thinly. Justice. After 2 more beers and detailed technical discussion, Aditya agreed. He would send me his complete notes and the original system architecture he'd designed, the version James had deemed too expensive and time-consuming, despite its superior security features. As we parted ways, Aditya asked one final question. This evidence you have against James, does it explain why he's been grooming you specifically? I kept my expression neutral. Let's just say I understand the currency he deals in. For the next 2 weeks, I lived a triple life. At the office, I was the dedicated team leader, working diligently on the Reynolds presentation while mentoring the junior engineers who had been on Aditya's team. At night, I secretly collaborated with Aditya himself, implementing his original vision while identifying critical vulnerabilities in the system James had approved. And at home, I played the role of oblivious husband, watching Claire's increasingly transparent lies with detached interest. She was meeting James 3 or 4 times a week now, growing careless with her excuses. Twice, she didn't bother coming home until morning, claiming she'd stayed at her friend Melissa's after drinks. Her location history showed the Four Seasons both times. I said nothing, did nothing, planned everything. 7 days before the Reynolds presentation, I executed the next phase. After ensuring Claire was deeply asleep, aided by the extra-strength sleeping pill I'd crushed into her nightcap, I carefully used her thumb to unlock her phone. Her message history with James was extensive and explicit. I forwarded key exchanges to my secure email, focusing on those that directly referenced my career advancement. Send me something new tonight, and I'll make sure Michael gets the Anderson project. That promotion is guaranteed now. Worth every second of what you did in my office yesterday. Wear the red lingerie tomorrow. If Michael delivers on the quarterly numbers, maybe we'll celebrate by making it a permanent arrangement. The evidence was damning, but insufficient for my purposes. I needed more, not just to destroy James, but to dismantle the culture that allowed him to operate with impunity. The next morning, I requested a meeting with HR to discuss a sensitive matter regarding team dynamics. Brenda Winters, our HR director, welcomed me into her office with professional warmth. "Michael, this is unexpected. What can I help you with?" I put on my most concerned expression. "I'm worried about the engineering team's morale after Aditya's sudden departure. Several team members have expressed confusion and anxiety." Brenda's carefully neutral expression told me everything. "Personnel matters are confidential, as you know. Aditya requested personal leave, which we granted. Of course, I'm not asking for details about his situation specifically." I leaned forward. "I'm more concerned about the pattern." "Pattern?" Her eyebrow raised slightly. "In the past 18 months, we've lost Sophia Chen, Marcus Washington, and now Aditya, all exceptional engineers who left suddenly after private meetings with James. The team is starting to notice and speculate." Brenda's discomfort was visible now. "I appreciate you bringing this to my attention, but I assure you each situation was unique and handled appropriately." "I believe you," I said soothingly. "But perception matters, especially with the Reynolds presentation coming up. The team needs reassurance that performance is what matters at Apex, not other factors." The implication hung in the air. Brenda was no fool. She'd been with the company for over a decade and had surely heard rumors. "What exactly are you suggesting, Michael?" "Nothing specific. Just wondering if there's a review process for executive decisions about personnel. Some companies implement checks and balances to ensure all employees are evaluated fairly." She studied me for a long moment. "Are you experiencing problems with James's leadership?" "Not personally, no. He's been extremely supportive of my career." I maintained eye contact. "I just want to ensure that support is based on merit." As I left her office, I knew the seed had been planted. Brenda Winters had a reputation for thoroughness. She would begin looking more closely at James's personnel decisions, creating a foundation of institutional suspicion I could build upon later. 3 days before the Reynolds presentation, I implemented the riskiest part of my plan. Using administrative access that Aditya had quietly granted me before his departure, I created a backdoor in the demonstration system, one that would only be apparent if someone knew exactly where to look. The backdoor wasn't malicious. It wouldn't damage client data or compromise their security. Instead, it would simply reveal itself at a specific trigger, demonstrating conclusively that the system James had approved contained fundamental vulnerabilities. That same evening, I invited the Reynolds technical team for an unofficial pre-presentation dinner. Without James or any other Apex executives present, I built rapport with the people who would actually be evaluating our system. Over steaks and expensive wine, charged to my corporate card, I subtly emphasized the importance of rigorous security testing. "The demonstration will look flawless," I told their lead engineer, Sandra Reyes, "but I encourage your team to probe deeper. Any security system is only as good as its weakest point." Sandra raised an eyebrow. "That's not the usual sales pitch, "Not in sales," I replied with a conspiratorial smile. "I'm an engineer. I'd rather you find issues during evaluation than after implementation." By the time we parted ways, Sandra had promised to have her best people thoroughly test our system during the demonstration. exactly as I needed them to do. When I arrived home that night, Claire was waiting in lingerie, black lace that I'd never seen before. A gift from James, perhaps. "You've been working so hard," she purred, handing me a glass of scotch. "I thought you deserved a reward." The irony was almost painful. I accepted the drink, but set it aside untouched. "What's wrong?" she asked, her practiced, seductive expression faltering. "Nothing. Just processing how lucky I am." I pulled her close, inhaling her perfume, and detecting beneath it the faint scent of unfamiliar cologne. "Do you ever think about how we got here, Claire? All the steps along the way?" "What do you mean?" A flicker of wariness crossed her features. "My career, your support, the sacrifices we've both made." I traced a finger along her collarbone, watching her suppress a shiver that wasn't entirely pleasure. "I couldn't have done it without you." "That's what partners do," she said, regaining her composure. "Support each other. And you've been so supportive." I kissed her, a deep, possessive kiss that made her hands clutch my shoulders. "When we broke apart," I whispered, "after the Reynolds presentation, everything changes. I promise you that." She mistook my meaning entirely, a broad smile spreading across her face. "James told me, Executive VP, we're going to celebrate properly." "Oh, we certainly will." I lifted her easily, carrying her to our bedroom. "But tonight, I want to remind you exactly who your husband is." What followed was nothing like our usual lovemaking. I was dominant, almost rough, channeling all my rage and betrayal into physical release while maintaining the pretense of passion. Claire responded with enthusiasm, mistaking my controlled fury for desire rekindled. When it was over, she curled against me, satisfied and oblivious to the fact that it was the last time I would ever touch her. "I love you," she murmured sleepily. "I know exactly how much you love me," I replied, staring at the ceiling and calculating my next move. The morning of the Reynolds presentation dawned clear and cold. I arrived at the office 3 hours early to make final preparations, both for the official demonstration and my own private agenda. By 9 a.m., the presentation room was immaculate, equipment tested, and my team thoroughly briefed. James arrived at 9:30, impeccably dressed and radiating confidence. "Today's the day, Michael." He clapped me on the shoulder. "Nervous?" "Not at all." I met his gaze steadily. "Everything's in place." "That's what I like about you." His voice lowered conspiratorially. "Always reliable. Always accommodating." The double meaning wasn't lost on me. I wondered briefly if he enjoyed the power imbalance, controlling my career while sleeping with my wife, or if Claire was just one in a long line of conquests he used to manipulate those around him. "We aim to please," I replied with a thin smile. "The Reynolds team should be here at 10. They've requested a detailed technical session after the main presentation." James frowned slightly. That wasn't on the agenda. Sandra Reyes called me directly last night. Their security team wants to conduct some penetration testing during the demonstration. I maintained an expression of professional enthusiasm. "It's actually a good sign. They wouldn't bother if they weren't seriously considering our proposal." "Fine, but keep it contained. We're showing them the approved system architecture only." His emphasis made his meaning clear. Aditya's original, more secure design was to remain buried. "Understood." I nodded respectfully, the perfect subordinate. "Everything will proceed according to plan." The Reynolds contingent arrived precisely at 10, Sandra Reyes leading a team of 8, including their CTO and 3 security specialists. The corporate pleasantries were exchanged, coffee served, and by 10:15 I had begun the formal presentation. For the next 40 minutes I was the consummate professional, highlighting the system's capabilities, the implementation timeline, and the support structure Apex would provide. James beamed from the sidelines as the Reynolds executives nodded approvingly. By all appearances, the presentation was a resounding success. Then came the technical demonstration. As requested, we've prepared a fully functional prototype for your team to evaluate, I announced, gesturing to the workstations we'd set up. Your security specialists are welcome to test it however they see fit. Sandra Reyes smiled. Excellent. We've prepared some specific scenarios. For the next hour, I guided their team through the system, while James circulated among the executives, discussing contract terms and implementation schedules. Everything proceeded exactly as expected, until precisely 11:47 a.m., when one of the Reynolds security specialists let out a low whistle. Ms. Reyes, you might want to see this. Sandra moved to his workstation, frowning at the screen. What am I looking at, David? A back door. Pretty sophisticated, but definitely intentional. He pointed to lines of code. Someone built a security, bypassed directly into the authentication protocol. The room went suddenly quiet. James appeared at Sandra's shoulder, his expression shifting from confusion to controlled alarm. That's impossible, he stated firmly. Our systems undergo rigorous security audits. The specialist, David, shrugged. Maybe so, but this backdoor exists. In a production environment, it would allow anyone with the right key to access all protected data. James looked at me, a flash of suspicion in his eyes. Michael, explain this. This was the moment I'd been orchestrating for weeks. I stepped forward, my expression grave. May I? I gestured to the workstation. David moved aside, and I spent a moment examining the code he'd highlighted, code I'd written myself, designed to be discovered by exactly this kind of scrutiny. This shouldn't be possible, I said slowly, infusing my voice with professional concern. Unless what? Sandra pressed. I straightened, looking directly at James. Unless this isn't the architecture we reviewed last month. This looks like the compromised version we specifically rejected due to security concerns. James's face darkened. What are you talking about? The vulnerability assessment from Aditya's team, I said, as if reminding him of something he should know. They identified potential backdoors in this approach, which is why we recommended the more robust architecture. I turned to Sandra. I'm deeply concerned about how this version made it into the demonstration. It certainly isn't what was approved for presentation. The lie was beautiful in its construction, technically accurate in that Aditya had indeed identified this vulnerability, but deliberately misleading about which version had been approved. And James couldn't contradict me without admitting he'd knowingly pushed forward a compromised system. Perhaps we should take a short break, the Reynolds CTO suggested, his expression carefully neutral. Give your team a chance to confer. The Reynolds contingent filed out for an early lunch. James gripped my arm with barely contained fury. My office, now. The moment his office door closed, he exploded. What the fuck was that? You deliberately sabotaged the demonstration. I did. No such thing, I replied calmly. I presented exactly the system you approved, including the security flaws Aditya warned you about before you forced him out. That's bullshit, and you know it. James paced like a caged animal. Aditya's design was over-engineered and would have blown the budget. I made a calculated decision. A decision to present a fundamentally flawed system to a 9-figure client? I raised an eyebrow. That seems like an odd choice for someone about to become director of engineering. He stopped pacing to stare at me. Are you threatening me? Not at all. I leaned against his desk. I'm simply pointing out that someone made a critical error. The question is, who will take responsibility? The calculation was visible in his eyes, weighing options, assessing damage control scenarios. Finally, he said, we'll blame it on Aditya's team. Say they implemented the wrong version before his departure and you didn't have time to properly review all the code. Throwing Aditya under the bus again, I shook my head. He has copies of all communications where he explicitly warned about these vulnerabilities. Copies I've seen personally. James went very still. What exactly do you want, Michael? Want? I want what's best for the company. I straightened. I suggest we reconvene with the Reynolds team, acknowledge the issue transparently, and present the correct architecture, the one Aditya originally designed. I have it ready to demonstrate. You just happen to have it ready. His voice was flat with suspicion. I'm thorough. Unlike some, I don't take shortcuts with client security. I moved toward the door. The choice is simple. We can salvage this situation professionally, or we can let it devolve into a blame game that benefits nobody. After a long moment, James nodded curtly. Fine. Show them the alternate architecture. But this conversation isn't over. I wouldn't expect it to be. The afternoon session was a remarkable turnaround. I presented Aditya's original design, highlighting its superior security features and explaining, with carefully crafted half-truths, that there had been an internal miscommunication about which version was approved for demonstration. The Reynolds team was impressed not just with the technical solution, but with our transparency about the earlier issue. By 4 p.m., their CTO was discussing implementation timelines, and Sandra Reyes was openly praising the system's elegant security protocols. As we concluded, James attempted to reassert control, stepping forward to shake hands and make promises about personal oversight. I watched him perform, knowing that within 24 hours, his career at Apex would be effectively over. That evening, while James was in emergency meetings with the CEO explaining the day's events, I made 2 crucial phone calls. The first was to Aditya, confirming that the Reynolds team had responded positively to his design and suggesting he contact our CEO directly about returning to lead the implementation. The second call was to Brenda Winters in HR. Michael, she answered, sounding tired. I've been hearing about the Reynolds demonstration. Quite the situation. That's partly why I'm calling, I said. But there's something more serious we need to discuss. Something I should have brought to your attention sooner. I'm listening. I've discovered evidence that James has been trading career advancement for personal favors. I let that sink in before continuing. Specifically, he's been having an affair with my wife, explicitly, linking my promotions to her cooperation. The silence on the line stretched for several seconds. That's an extremely serious accusation, Brenda finally said. Do you have evidence? Text messages, photos, timestamps that correlate with every promotion and project assignment I've received in the past year. My voice remained steady. I can forward everything to you right now, but I wanted to speak with you first out of respect for the proper process. Another long pause. Send it all to my personal email, not my company address. I'll review it tonight and we'll meet first thing tomorrow. Her voice softened slightly. And Michael, I'm very sorry you're in this position. Thank you, Brenda. So am I. After sending the evidence, I poured myself a drink and waited for Claire to return home. She arrived just after 8, flushed and agitated. Is James okay? She asked immediately, not bothering with pretense. I've been trying to reach him for hours. The last I saw, he was explaining to the CEO why he approved a flawed system for our biggest potential client. I sipped my whiskey. Not his finest moment. Claire paled slightly. But the presentation, I thought it went well in the end. It did. No thanks to James. I studied her over the rim of my glass. Funny thing about success. It's often hard to tell who actually deserves the credit. She moved to the bar, pouring herself a generous measure of vodka. What does that mean? It means I know, Claire. I kept my voice conversational. About you and James. About the arrangement you've had. About how my career has really been advancing. The glass froze halfway to her lips. Michael, don't. I raised a hand. No tearful confessions, no desperate explanations. I've seen the messages. I know exactly what you've been doing and for how long. She set the glass down, her hand visibly shaking. It's not what you think. It's exactly what I think. You've been sleeping with my boss to advance my career. As if I were some project you could manage, some asset you could leverage. I did it for us, she whispered, tears welling. For our future. No. My voice hardened. You did it because it gave you power. Because manipulating both of us made you feel important. That's not fair. Fair? I laughed bitterly. Was it fair to make me complicit in your affair without my knowledge? To let me take promotions I thought I'd earned? To make me grateful to the man who was fucking my wife? She flinched at my language, then attempted to regain control, straightening her shoulders. What happens now? Now? I drained my glass. Now you pack a bag and leave. The evidence of your arrangement with James has been sent to HR. By morning, the entire executive team will know what's been happening. You've ruined everything, she whispered, horror spreading across her face. My reputation, your career, all of it. My career will be fine. I actually am good at my job, Claire, despite your lack of faith in my abilities. I stood, towering over her. But you're right about one thing. I have ruined everything. Your affair, James's authority, the toxic system that allowed him to operate unchecked for years. By this time tomorrow, it will all be ashes. Where am I supposed to go? Her voice had shrunk, the reality of her situation finally sinking in. I really don't care. The Four Seasons, perhaps. I hear you're quite familiar with their accommodations. I walked to the door and held it open. You have 30 minutes to pack essentials. Anything you leave, I'll have shipped to your parents' house in Connecticut. Michael, please. 29 minutes. She stared at me for a long moment, searching. For the husband she thought she knew, the man she could manipulate and control. Finding only cold resolve, she finally turned and walked wordlessly to our bedroom. 26 minutes later, she left our home for the last time, 2 suitcases in tow and mascara streaking her cheeks. I closed the door behind her, then methodically poured another drink and seated myself in the living room window, watching night settle over the city. My phone buzzed with a text from Aditya. CEO called. I'm leading Reynolds implementation, coming back Monday. I smiled to myself and typed a response. Congratulations. Well deserved. Another text arrived, this one from Brenda Winters. Reviewed everything. Emergency executive meeting scheduled for 7 a.m. Your presence requested at 9. This will be handled swiftly and decisively. I'll be there, I replied. Setting my phone aside, I raised my glass in a silent toast to the empty room. In one meticulously orchestrated sequence, I had secured the Reynolds contract with Aditya's superior design, ensured Aditya's triumphant return, and likely promotion exposed James's professional and ethical violations, dismantled my sham of a marriage positioned, myself as both victim and whistleblower, guaranteeing my continued employment while destroying those who had wronged me. The company would survive the scandal. New leadership would emerge. The toxic culture would be addressed, at least superficially. And I would be there, quietly rebuilding my career on a foundation of genuine merit rather than my wife's betrayal. As for Claire and James, they would learn what I had discovered 3 weeks ago, that some actions create a point of no return. A moment after which nothing can ever be the same again. A threshold where destruction becomes inevitable, regardless of remorse or consequence. They had created such a point in my life, I had simply returned the favor.